Okay. All right. So let me just welcome all our families here today, and for the staff members who are joining us as well. Our hope for today's meeting was just to give parents and families a little bit of an opportunity here to ask questions, get a better understanding of our remote learning guidelines as we push towards the opening of school next week. So our structure for today is we're going to go through different components of our reopening plan. Just give a brief overview and then give families an opportunity to ask questions around that specific part of the reopening plan. So as we go through each part, if you could keep those questions specific to the part that we're currently covering, and that'll allow us to focus in and hone in on some of the things that you might still have questions around or just want some clarification on. Our hope is to then take this presentation and share it out onto our Town LCAT channel on YouTube. So anybody who is unable to join us today will then be able to follow up and watch the presentation via LCAT. So with that, Mr. Wright, if you want to jump onto our next slide, we'll jump right in here.
Sure thing. And for those attendees, this presentation is in the portals right now. You'll find it in the resources section, and the remote learning guidelines down at the bottom there, that's a live link. So that's the information that we use to guide this presentation.
Okay. All right. So just a quick overview, a quick snapshot here, and you can see the presentation. There are a couple of links embedded, so there'll be different times where it'll take you to a different link. But we do have a school year mapped out right now for 170 school days, and we're starting school on September 16th. You can find here the ELPS school calendar. Some of that might get tweaked by school committee in the coming weeks, but right now we are still working off of the calendar that was outlined for us over the summer. And if you're looking at how our terms are breaking down, so right now we are remote going into January, and the first two terms that are going to be covered during that remote learning time, term 1 starts on 9/16 and it goes till the middle of November and it ends on November 18th. Term 2 starts the next day on November 19th, and that takes us through the end of January to January 29th. All right, so those first two terms are going to comprise of the first semester of classes. So all the classes that your students are currently in will run through from September 16th through January 29th, and that is the first semester. The majority of their classes will switch second semester, and they will take a total of 8 courses this year. All right, so for now, as we're going through our schedule and our students are in this remote learning environment, they're taking 4 academic courses each day, which is also going to include a Spartan support block in the middle of the day. That Spartan support block in the middle of the day does not exist when we are in person, but it is something we created for this situation to make sure that we best support our students. We will continue to have our office hours after school where each day of the week, different classes will be offering extra support for the students from 2 to 3 o'clock. And if you click on that link through the presentation, you can access that after school schedule. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of what a day is going to look like. You have those 4 blocks running from 7:25 to 1:45. You have the Spartan block in the middle of the day there. You also have the terms in terms of when grades are going to be closing, when the semester is going to be closing. So quick general overview here. Is there anything anybody wants to hit on in terms of questions, anything they're looking for clarification on in relation to just the school year or the schedule overview that we have at this point?
All right, so Frank, I'll jump on to the next slide and then just keep tabs on the chat in case something pops in, okay?
Okay, I'm not seeing anything at the moment.
No, neither. All right, so the next thing that, whoops, did I go too far? No. The next thing we want to talk about is our Spartan support block. The guiding vision here is really that it takes a village. And so the purpose of this is to provide students with social, emotional, and academic support during the school day. The structure of this block, while you saw on the last slide that we are looking at 9:55 to 10:50, within that time frame, we're talking about 10 minutes of what would traditionally be known as an advisory at the beginning of the period. And then the remaining time is for students to seek help from teachers, meet with their guidance counselor, work independently on previously assigned classwork, and participate in clubs or groups. Now those clubs and groups would be an evolution through the through the term. There won't be groups or clubs as we open the school year. Those will be things that will be developed as we get into our routine with this Spartan support block. So students will work with their Spartan support teacher to build their individual plan for their flexible time during that block. So one practice that we envision would be early in the week. The Spartan support teacher is meeting with their 10 to 12 students and helping them determine their own needs and helping them determine how they need to spend this flexible time during the Spartan support block for the remainder of the week. And we're also asking parents to help with this. As you are reviewing your students' progress in their classes, their attendance, the areas where they're struggling, we're asking that parents also guide our students to the right place for them during this Spartan support block. Our whole faculty will have, after that 10 minutes of the initial advisory period is over, the entire faculty is available to help kids in with their classwork or implement some of the other supports that we've talked about. So as you're engaging in conversations with your children and you're talking about grades and outstanding work and attendance and guidance needs, just keep in the back of your mind, this Spartan support block is intended to address those needs during the school day. I did link at the bottom here the presentation that we gave to the faculty last week, so that way parents can see exactly what we're talking about here at the school. But again, the overall mindset here is it takes a village. So every kid in our building will have somebody who's putting a little bit of individual attention on that particular student during this time and helping guide them to meet their needs as they move through this first semester.
So Mr. Wright, we did get the question, is Spartan Block mandatory to attend?
Yes, so Spartan Block is just like any other class. We are expecting every student to participate in those first 10 minutes. After that first 10 minutes, we are building that level of independence for students to seek the support they need, to engage in the classwork that they had already been assigned, participate in the groups or the clubs as they go along. And so that there is a certain amount of independence that will come with this Spartan support block. So the first 10 minutes will be, the expectation is that every kid is with their Spartan support teacher.
Yeah,
I do think we should say as well that 10 minutes is an arbitrary time frame. So if a Spartan support teacher gets into a really good conversation with their group, that 10 minutes may be 15 minutes. It might be, it might stretch until that conversation's concluded. But that first portion of the period is mandatory.
Yeah, and during those 10 minutes, we will be providing some structure to that time. We're going to be sharing out things like the daily announcements. Typically what we would have done in the morning when we used to have our morning announcements when kids were in school, we're going to use that time to share things like club schedules, athletic schedules, important information in terms of grades, things like that might be pushed out during that time. So there will be some structure to it, not just announcements, but there'll also be different topics that the advisor might just touch on, specific to the needs of the kids that are in their group.
All right, so I do see that same question about in person. We're going to get to that by the time we get done with this presentation. So I think we should hold on that for now.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one. You ready?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so the next piece here, there's a lot of different digital tools out there that a lot of schools are utilizing, and I will say at the high school we're really focusing on a few that I think a lot of our kids are already familiar with. So when we transition next week into that remote learning environment, the kids are familiar with those programs and they're ready to hit the ground running. So just at the high school, the three tools that we're focusing on big picture: one, Plus Portals. Plus Portals, it's that communication portal for both students and families. It's where you can find things like grades, daily attendance, block attendance, student schedules, links for teacher emails, and other resources that we might push out. So really the idea behind the portal, which we're going to continue to utilize, and we're probably going to try to find more ways to use it this year, it's that communication tool. And it's also the spot where families should expect to receive the weekly overview from each of their teachers, their students' teachers, in regards to what a teacher is going to be mapping out for each week of remote learning. So at the beginning of each week, you should be getting communication through the portal, just outlining what the upcoming week is going to look like. The second thing that we utilize at the high school, we've used this for years now, is the Google Suite. In specific this year, we are asking all of our teachers to set up Google Classrooms so they can organize their virtual meetings for their students, their assignments, their classwork. So Google is a platform that we utilize in a variety of different ways at the school. All the kids do have the Chromebooks. So obviously utilizing Google Suite allows them to seamlessly use the programs through the Chromebook. The last thing, which is new this year, and it sets us up for this virtual environment, we're using Edgenuity. Some of your classes will be connected to the Edgenuity curriculum. And really what Edgenuity is, it's a virtual curriculum that a lot of our core content teachers are going to use to enhance and run components of their teaching. So it has things built in there like lesson plans, assessments, quizzes, instructional videos, different activities that teachers can use to go through a set curriculum, something like a math class or an English class, science class. You might see your student logging into Edgenuity. All right. And then the last piece here, I just do want to highlight some of our teachers have really dug into a lot of different cool tools for their digital learning for this fall. So you might see some of our teachers using programs like Turnitin. Our math teachers, you might see Equatio. For some of our special education students, you can see them using IXL. A lot of our teachers took PD on Edpuzzle. So there's a lot of different programs that our teachers have learned about and might be utilizing in their individual classes. If we're talking big picture, if you hear anything from the high school, the three that we just keep coming back to and talking about are going to be Plus Portals, Google Classroom, and then the use of Edgenuity. All right.
Hey, Frank, before we go on, there's a question that just came on about parents getting access to the Google Classroom, and that's something that we have talked about as a staff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so parents can request parent access to the classroom, and really what that means is first you do have to have a Google account, but you can get a weekly summary of what's going on in the Google Classroom if you do sign up as a parent and you do make that request. Now, the reason why we're asking our parents to send out our staff to send out the weekly overview through the Plus Portals is because Plus Portals does not require you to have a Google account. And I know a lot of families utilize different web services. So we figured to push out that communication on Mondays through the portals, it should hit everybody's email. The Google Classroom, it's a great tool for teachers and students because they're all functioning on a Google platform. But if parents are asking for like the individual access to the student account where you get like the daily interaction stuff, unfortunately, you won't get to that level of access.
So I think though we have recently come up with or come across a solution for part of our issue. When teachers use Google Classroom, students submit their work and it can be graded through Google Classroom as well. And we just learned how to link the portal, Plus Portal, to Google Classroom. And so for many of the sort of those gaps in between when a student received a grade in Google Classroom, but it wasn't on the portal yet, many of those issues will be resolved. And you know, as teachers get more and more familiar with that linking, we should offer quite a bit of support for parents who are checking in on the portal. You should be able to see things in a lot more readily available because a teacher doesn't have to then transfer everything out of Google Classroom over to the portal. You know, that will be done for them. So that should really help out in a lot of different ways, in particular for parents who are monitoring and checking in on missing homework and things like that, missing classwork.
Okay, and I see a question that says, will teachers do lectures in the classroom while kids listen through Zoom? So we will not be utilizing Zoom. We're going to be using Google's meeting function. It's called Google Meets. And when the teachers create their Google Classroom, it's actually going to create a link for that individual class that when the teacher sends those links to the kids would have access to. So the Google Meet is going to be structured through the Google Classroom, and that's where the kids would have those virtual teaching meetings. And I will say every class that a kid has each day will have at least a component of it that's going to be, it's going to be live.
All right, so let's see, I'm monitoring, looks like we could go on to the next slide and incorporate some of these other questions into this next slide.
And yeah, and just to answer that last question, yes, classes will be conducted through live instruction.
All right, so let's go into the next slide. Okay, so we talk about student workload and grading, and that's been some of the topics here of the question. So most of the assignments that teachers will issue should be able to be completed within the 70-minute class meeting. And that's not to say that there aren't times where students will have work outside of that 70 minutes. Enrichment and extension assignments may be offered, and those could be things that are completed outside of that 70 minutes. Students receive weekly overviews for their classes, and not only students, but that's really geared towards parents who are helping their student build their weekly schedule. The portals will be used for parents to access that document. Graded assignments will be indicated on this overview. So we're really pushing hard to make sure that students and parents have at least a snapshot of what to expect for the week ahead. And I can give just a slight example there where, if you envision a typical 70-minute structure, there may be 3 or 4 common approaches that a teacher may take. And one of them may offer an extended period of live instruction, while the other model may offer an extended period of independent work, depending on where that teacher may be in that unit. So we really would love to be able to paint a picture for students and parents to say, okay, hey, this is going to be a heavy screen day. I have a few longer lectures here on this day, whereas the next day is going to be a pretty heavy independent work day. And so, we're hoping to get to a place where you get that type of a snapshot on your week, so that as you're working with your child and your children, you can say to them, hey, here's our plan. Here's a few things that we could talk through to be ready for the week, and so on. And so the graded assignments will be in that overview. We're hoping to give parents a snapshot of how the kids will be spending their time during each period. We will be implementing traditional grading practices, as opposed to the spring. We were operating on a pass-fail basis at that point. We are reverting back to traditional grading practices. All of our departments will establish and share their grading practices specific to this remote environment. So it won't be identical to if we had all of our kids in the building every day, but it won't be pass-fail. It'll be somewhere on that spectrum, leaning closer towards traditional grading practices. And as a school, we've agreed that we're going to give kids 5 school days to complete outstanding work without penalty. So Frank, have you seen anything that we should address here?
I don't see any new questions yet, but I will just chime in. So at the end of this week, you should get a updated and finalized version of the ELHS distance learning plan. And it will outline, as Mr. Wright was talking about, all of the different practices and expectations for each of our individual departments at the high school. So, you'll see what the plans are and what the grading practices are going to be for something like social studies, for what our math courses might be doing. And it'll outline all the specifics that you need. Our departments right now are working on finalizing those, and they should have those in the next couple of days, and we'll be able to push that out to families at the end of this week. So not only will you have the big picture distance learning plan expectations that we've already shared with you, but you'll start to see how it drills down to the department level as well. All right, I do see a couple questions popping in.
We have a few questions popping in. So we have a question around the assumption of whether or not students should have homework on top of their daily assignments. Do you want to address that one?
Yeah, so one of the things we are asking our teachers to do is find ways to limit screen time where possible. So, they will be working on assignments within the classes that they're taking. Some of those assignments may run beyond the 70 minutes. We can't guarantee every day that the kids are going to stop working right at those 70 minutes and then the work is done. The one thing we would like to stress for us is the screen time piece, but it doesn't mean that necessarily the kids won't get any homework. Things like projects, papers, some of your bigger assignments might run beyond the traditional block structure. Okay, let's see, what other options will be available for the required community service hours? So right now we're working on the community service piece. Obviously that's a little bit of a difficult one to fully answer at the moment, but our our career counselor, the guy who usually oversees the community service hours for our building, Mr. Macarini, we've been in talks with him about different ways to meet those community service requirements for kids. So we're working on different ways to get those kids those hours. And then I see a question: will teachers be in the classroom or teaching from home? So it's going to be a mix. Some staff will be here, and some staff will be working remotely. Okay.
All right, so move on to the next one.
Let's see. Will teachers? Okay. All right. Yep. I think we're good for the next one.
All right, here we go. All right, so attendance policy and live instruction expectations. And we have touched a little bit on this, but we'll dig in. So there's a live component to every class every day. And that is sort of linked back to what we talked about before, where we're hoping to be able to give folks an image of what that week's going to look like in terms of those live components each day. Teachers will submit attendance based on the students who are in attendance for that live portion of the class. So if that teacher sees a student missing, that student is marked absent for that class. The attendance, so our attendance policy for the district, students with more than 9 absences in a semester course will lose credit for that course. Of course, there is an appeals process. So we really need to make sure that our students are understanding that policy. So when you think about the term of a semester, that's not even 1 a week. That's roughly 1 absence every other week out of a class would get you to that number of 9. And so we really need kids to be logging in and engaging in these live portions of instruction so that they can get the instruction that teacher is offering and be successful on the classwork for that section. We do have some common district-wide expectations for students during live instruction. That includes cameras on, mics on mute during the teacher-directed portions. We are looking for appropriate school day attire during live portions. Students should be in a designated learning space free from distraction with appropriate seating and workspace. So if you can sort of imagine a teenager in their bed trying to patch into live instruction, that is sort of the opposite of what we're looking for. We would like kids to be seated appropriately in a workspace that's as free from distraction as possible. Students should be prepared for class prior to the start of live instruction. So really the mindset should be they're walking into a classroom. And so anything that they need for that class should be in their possession at the time. Misuse of videos, the chat, so their mics will result in administrative follow-up. And so those types of things would be reported to us just in the same way that sort of in-class behaviors would be reported to us. So we're looking for really support from home and getting students ready to have their cameras on. They're sitting in an appropriate spot for their work. So anything coming through with this?
Yeah, we got a couple questions. I have one. Should we have our students take a screenshot of class virtually that they virtually attend in case they are accidentally marked absent by a teacher who didn't see them? So for that one, I don't think we should run into that issue. All of our staff are going to be asked to go through it and make sure that they check off every single kid who's in those chats. They are going to be asked to record those and submit those to the office per block. That's at least the plan at the moment. If there's any dispute or anything like that, I think those are conversations that our office staff will have with families if there's some type of issue there. If there's a technology issue, if something else comes up, those are conversations that we can have. I also have a question: if a student is absent or needs to be tardy or dismissed, do parents notify the teachers directly or call the office? So if a kid doesn't sign up in that first block of the day, we are going to have the office staff calling home to verify absences, as we typically would. Any kid who doesn't arrive to school on a typical day by 8 o'clock, we do have our office staff call up and verify. We'll be going along with that same practice. So that's going to be if your child does not make that first block of the day, we'll get those calls. But if your kid is being dismissed, if you could communicate that information to us as well, that would be great. Because I will say, to add on to the attendance policy, we are planning on offering sports this fall. Part of the sport requirement is that kids attend every class every day. That's always been an expectation. So you got to make sure that you are making it to all your classes. All
Looks
right.
like so far we're staying on top of the questions. So we'll go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Yeah.
I'll take this one. All right. So, so other services and programming, and I think this hits on a couple of questions that people asked earlier. But our guidance office, I just want to talk a little bit about them first. You know, we are aware that we are remote, obviously, but we are also, you know, aware that the situation is a little bit different than where we were in the spring, and that there are certain things that we can do in this remote situation that we were unable to do back in the spring. So just for example, one thing, part of our building will be open to an extent where we will have guidance office. I'm sorry, we will have the guidance office open from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. any day where you want to make a call and connect with a counselor in person. So you will be able to call the school and connect with our guidance staff to answer any questions you might have around scheduling, the college process, whatever it might be. So the guidance office will be open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you want to connect with a counselor. Now that does not necessarily mean in-person visits. We are still, you know, restricting that piece, but you will be able to connect with our guidance office to get support or answer any questions that you might have. We still are offering our work study program and externships and independent studies for our seniors. So if there's anything that your senior might have interest in those areas, you know, they just would have to go through the process like any other senior in the past. There's paperwork that they have to fill out, but connect with your guidance counselor and they can talk to you about the opportunities that we have there. In terms of extracurricular activities, so as I highlighted earlier, we are offering athletics this fall, which I think is awesome. I think it's going to be great for our kids to have those in-person experiences. Where we can do those things safely, we're going to find as many ways as possible to do so. From athletics, we're hoping that opens our door a little bit where we can also start to offer some after-school clubs. We're currently mapping out which clubs we're going to be able to run in person, which ones still might run virtually. And the other piece too, which you're going to hear from our staff and our teachers, is this ongoing schedule of book and material exchanges. So I think that the one big thing from last spring that a lot of our kids still have are their books and their materials from their classes when the schools closed down. You know, we had kids hold on to those because we were expecting to be getting those materials back in the fall. So now we are going to set up some times for kids to both return stuff, but also for some of their classes, like an art class, an English class where they might be reading a specific novel, they'll be able to also come to the school and pick up materials so they can progress through the curriculum. Those will be identified days by department. They're going to be run after school, so a kid is not missing any classes. But we will have those days, and they will be probably on a regular occurrence. In terms of food services, so more information is going to be sent to the families by Lori Paul. She is our food and services coordinator. But grab-and-go meals are going to be offered for all students, for any families who might need that. Pickups will be on Tuesdays and Fridays in the afternoon from 4:30 to 5:45 p.m. And the meals for the entire district are going to be distributed through our building, just so you're aware of that piece. The last thing I just want to hit on quickly here, we are going to have our open house scheduled the week of October 5th. That open house is going to be virtual, but it will give each parent an opportunity to connect with the individual teachers of your students so you can ask questions that pertain specifically to that class. So after we get into the school year for a couple of weeks and those questions start to pop up, we are going to be setting up a virtual open house in the evening during the week of October 5th to give you that opportunity to meet with the staff who have your kids. All right.
Wait, did you go through the work study externship piece?
I hit on it briefly. Is there anything you wanted to add to it?
I feel this does pertain to the seniors, but if your senior is interested in the work study or externship program and they do not have an opportunity already lined up, we are able to offer some support for kids who are interested but don't have something. So our Mr. Macarini can help them find, well, at least help them try to find a spot to do their work study or their externship. So we are really excited to be able to offer that for our seniors. So if anybody out there is interested in that, please take us up on that to get the kids a chance to to use some of their time for those purposes. Now, there's a question in the Q&A around using video full time. And so I think that what we would what we would envision would be doses of video, followed by doses of independent work time. So there's definitely, you should not see your student on a video chat from 7:25 to 1:45. It would be intermittent through that time. And depending on that particular kid, whether they're getting extra help or whether they're participating in a small group during that time, you know, everybody would be probably on a unique schedule, but definitely not the whole day, the whole school day.
Okay, and I do have one question in regards to staff working from home and not in the building. I'm not going to go too much into that one. I can just say that was a decision made by school committee and the superintendent in regards to staff being required to work in the building.
All right, so we can hang out for in case anybody has any questions that they want to put into the Q&A or any other topics.
So, yeah, so to that point, yeah, we did hit on all the different information and the topics that we were looking to hit on today. But if there's anything specific that you guys want to talk about outside of this presentation, we'd be more than happy to stick around for a few, just like Mr. Ray said. And if there's anything specific to your child that you would like to connect on or touch base on, those are things that you can always shoot us an email for, call the school. You know, we do have some PD coming up in the next couple of days, but we should also be available, and we'll find ways to connect with you.
All right, something just came in. How will the new structure affect seniors who have to report mid-year grades to college? So they'll actually have final grades for one set of courses. So it would be, instead of partial grades, they would have 4 complete final grades, and they would have 4 new classes. So those mid-year grades would be slightly impacted, but I would say we're not alone. We're not the only high school offering semester-based courses. So it's something that colleges have experienced and continue to.
Okay, and just it looks like we got one more question in terms of administrators providing support in the level of instruction. Let's see, monitor the level and amount of instruction students receive. So some of that stuff will be monitored through the classroom, through Google Classroom, but you know, we are working pretty collaboratively with our staff. We do have regular check-ins between the full staff and the department heads and different meetings within the building to make sure that the experience we're putting forward for families right now is the you know, the best possible learning experience that we can provide to these kids, and the one that, you know, we're driving to put something forward that is consistent and clear, and you know, that's something that we're keeping that focus on right from day one.
Yeah, a couple of questions popping in. So we have one around students are taking less credits, which is maybe maybe a misconception that's there maybe somewhere. The kids are still taking the same number of classes. It's just going to be structured in a different way. They'll be taking 4 classes per semester for a total of 8 classes. And in terms of the next question, it asks about the important classes. Not sure what that exactly means. What are the important classes? I think colleges are adept at looking at a transcript and not just looking for the second semester of a senior year. They're able to look at a transcript for an entire high school career. And so I imagine that it's, you know, if there's a specific question there from anonymous attendee, I'd be happy to, you know, if you want to give me a call, we can talk through this. But there's no difference in how many courses kids are taking or how they're going to be impacted as they transition to college. It's just a different structure. It's a different way of delivering the courses. And then we have a question about communicating with kids.
Okay, the overview of how this works being communicated to kids. So are we talking about big picture plans that we're talking about right now? Or are we talking about at the individual class level? I think that I would just need information on that one. When we see our second half of the year courses to make sure they're all meeting graduation requirements. So in regards to the graduation requirements, obviously our counselors are on top of that. The courses are already listed in the system. I would say in the next few weeks, potentially the next month or so, we should be able to share out those schedules as well. All right. So in Ms. Martin, you're asking about the if the COVID numbers stay low for the area during the fall months, and are there plans happening to go back hybrid fully in person prior to decisions made by the school committee? So I think that's a district level decision. We haven't gotten into those conversations yet. Right now, we're just focusing on the opening of school. Okay, remote learning is currently scheduled into the beginning of January, with second semester ending at the end of January. Is there the possibility of some sort of in-person learning for second? I'm guessing second semester means second term. So again, right now, we haven't really gotten into any discussions around January just yet. Our focus at the moment has just been about getting these kids into a appropriate learning environment starting next week, where we can get them back to a routine of school.
And in terms of the volunteer hours, and any question related specifically to grad requirements for your child would be really best addressed to their guidance counselor. They would be able to walk you through exactly what courses they've taken, what courses are left, any other information that's like relevant to your student in terms of that transition out of high school. Your guidance counselor is really your point person there. We have made a slight shuffle in our guidance counselors, and all that information you'll find in the portals. So we have, and then we have a question around the link. Yeah, if you look in the resource section of the portal, you'll see a presentation. You'll find a folder that's the 2021 school year, and inside of that folder, you'll see this presentation, and then I think there's one other resource in there as well.
Okay, so I just hit on the question. It does say, it asks about doing a presentation like this with the students.
Yeah.
So what we did back in the spring is we did offer students an opportunity to, check in with us, ask any questions that they might have. Mr. Wright and I might do something similar in the next week or so for kids.
Really, yeah. Then we're gonna use that first Spartan support block to present. We're gonna send out a similar invite to kids through LCAT, and you'll be able to get to as many kids as we can at a time with the same sort of information.
And there is one question around breaks throughout the course of the day. So there are built-in breaks between each block. If a kid also needs to take a break during class, I'm sure teachers will, work with that student to make that time available to them. There is a lunch break built into the Spartan block as well. So the students do have a lunch break built in, starting at 10:50 and running to 11:20. All right, this presentation with the links. Okay, and there's a question about the presentation being in the portal. So it is in the portal under resources. If you check there, if you're still, that should be in there, correct, Mr. Wright?
Yeah, it's there. I put it in there this morning.
Okay. All right. So students begins ours. Okay. So in terms of level changes, we do have a level change option within our program of studies that runs through the end of term 1. That does not necessarily mean changing of all your courses, but if you're moving from an honors level to a standard level and the schedule permits it, it is a possibility within our program of studies. But again, it's specific moving from the same content area in the honors program to a standard level course. Okay, and is the homeroom Spartan block advisories posted in the portal accurate at this time? So the Spartan block, it is not accurate yet. Our counselors are actually working on that this week. They're finalizing the Spartan block advisory for us this week.
All right. So I think so far we're up to speed with. See anything else coming through?
Not yet. Okay, so I think that answers most questions. If there's anything that you guys have questions on, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here, we're available. We're excited to start school next week, start connecting with the kids, both virtually and for anybody who might be playing a sport or engaging in some of our other programming that we start to push out, the in-person stuff as well. We miss the kids. We're excited to have them back here, and we're really hoping for a really good start to the school year. And last question. Yes, there's a recording of this video. We have been recording it, and LCAT's going to be putting it up on the LCAT channel on YouTube. So
All right.
appreciate everybody's time today. Mr. Wright, do you want to say any last words?
I would just say that if there's anything you need, don't hesitate to reach out to us, whether that be a phone call or an email. We just want to make sure that any questions that you have, any information that you need, that we're making sure that we address that for you guys. So don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Yeah, have a good Tuesday, everybody. Like I said, we're really excited to start seeing the kids next week. It's it's been a long 6 months, but we're ready to welcome them back.